The next stage is generativity versus stagnation. And in our majority culture, and that's the Caucasian culture, it's approximately between our 40s and our 50s. Subcultures in our majority culture may follow the same thing. They may have different ones. So I'm just acknowledging that there are different life paths for people who belong to different cultures in our country. Generativity versus stagnation is all about the world of work. And it's not necessarily paid work, but what do you work at? And again, it's in the context of a relationship. For example, somebody who's a full-time mother is working on raising her children. She has physically, with a man, generated these products that are valued by society. Right now we're probably overpopulated, so you should make fewer products, but you should still make products, make these children, or adopt them so that you can turn them into productive citizens for that community. Okay? So the work of being a mother, of being a father, of being a parent is generative. You are investing in the future. Okay? And I think that's the most obvious example. But what Erickson does mean by generativity in the general sense of all work is this investment in the future. If you are in the medical field, providing health care invests in the future. Okay? Reducing diseases, making people healthy so they can go on to be productive members of society. Teaching is generative. Teaching people the skills they're going to need in their future lives. Being a sanitation worker, collecting all the garbage so there is room for the future generation, is a generative job. So our work, be it paid or unpaid, is being generative. And we need to do that in order to grow, in order to enhance, practice our ego skills. Okay? The opposite of that is stagnation. The person who's not providing for the next generation, the person who is isolated, and so you can see that previous stage influencing this current one. The person who is isolated, the person who mistrusts, the person who has a sense of doubt and shame about what they do, who's guilty about any kind of plan for their behavior, is not going to produce, is not going to generate something for the future. One example would be a person who has a midlife crisis. They maybe were on shaky ground before this in the resolution, but on the surface of things were looking good. And then they go off, they divorce their spouse, they get a fancy car that's too young for them, they get a mate that's too young for them and not really interested in them, they have sex, but there's no real deep self-disclosure.